she uses this tome. Oh my gosh. She uses this tome to record her periods. What? And it just so happens we're going to be getting some information about menstrual cycles in the next episode of The Acolyte. Can you believe this? Yeah, that's happening. Just when you thought this whole witchcraft thing with Star Wars was over after episode 3 of The Acolyte, it's not. StarWars.com writer Kristen Bevel, who is actually the editor-in-chief now at StarWars.com, she just doubles down and gives us a whole running history of witchcraft and Star Wars and the monumental impact that it's had on Acolyte showrunner Leslie Headland. Let's get into it. So I released a video yesterday talking about the possible inspiration, maybe I should say likely, but the possible inspiration of showrunner Leslie Headland and the whole occult, Wiccan, satanic temple, everything. It's just crazy that we're even talking about these things when it comes to Star Wars. Well, just a couple hours ago, I see on StarWars.com, after yesterday's video, they go all in on witchcraft and Leslie Headland's comments about her inspiration. How about that? So here we are at StarWars.com, and you see the article just published today. In The Acolyte, Joni Turner-Smith's mother, Anastasia, is mothering. Subtitle, Learn more about the witch coven at the center of the latest episode of the new Disney Plus series. Yeah, because that's what we want to learn about. Before I get into the comments of the article at StarWars.com, I want to set the record straight and give you a history of Star Wars and witchcraft, because a lot of people are incorrectly saying that witchcraft's been in part of Star Wars for a very long time, George Lucas created this was his doing and all that. Well, I'm going to lay the record straight there, because in my personal opinion, as a fan of Star Wars, as a fan of George Lucas Star Wars from 1977 to 2012, Star Wars, this really doesn't belong in Star Wars for me. I am not a fan of this. Here we go. Yes, it's true, Star Wars has incorporated elements that might be interpreted as having similarities with witchcraft. The Force is one of them. The Night Sisters, obviously. The Dathomirian magic, obviously. And mystical artifacts and rituals. You can't argue that those things have been a part of Star Wars. But when did the whole Night Sisters begin? When did the Witches of Dathomir begin? Where did it come from? People are incorrectly saying that George Lucas created that. It's not true at all. George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars, did remain involved with Star Wars, the Clone Wars animated series, as an executive producer throughout its run. But over time, he lessened his influence on the show, giving more and more control to Dave Filoni as time went on. His direct involvement in the day-to-day production and decision-making process decreased as the series progressed, period. After Disney's acquisition of Lucasfilm in 2012, Lucas retired from active filmmaking and handed over creative control to the Star Wars franchise to Disney. A dark day for all of us. As a result, he maintained his role as an executive producer for the duration of the Clone Wars. His direct involvement diminished, though, and he was not as closely involved in the later seasons of the subsequent development of the new Star Wars content. But what about the Night Sisters? When did all that begin? The Witches of Dathomir, also known as the Night Sisters, were introduced in the Star Wars Expanded Universe, now known as, sadly, Star Wars Legends, and later featured in the canonical Star Wars universe as well. They were created by author Dave Wolverton for the 1994 novel The Courtship of Princess Leia. In the Star Wars universe, the Witches of Dathomir are a clan-based society of Force-sensitive females who inhabit the planet Dathomir. They have their own unique Force traditions and practices, often involving dark side aspects, and are known for their connection to magic, rituals, and the mystical energies of their homeworld. The concept of the Witches of Dathomir has been expanded upon in various Star Wars novels, comics, and television series, including Star Wars, the Clone Wars animated series, and Star Wars Rebels. But remember, George Lucas, as time went on, was less and less involved, and the Night Sisters made their debut in Star Wars canon in the Clone Wars Season 3, Episode 12, in the episode titled Night Sisters that you see right here on the IMDb. And what is the date? January 2011. We're talking about the year before George Lucas sold Star Wars to Disney. This is when this began, the year before he sold it to Disney. So how involved do you think George Lucas really was with this? Not very. So where did all this witch stuff come from? Dave Filoni, of course, and his wife. Dave Filoni and his wife. She is a self-professed witch, apparently. You could see it on social media. It's been documented. It's been covered. Our good friend WDW Pro broke this whole thing down over 8 months ago and let everybody know this is the direction that Star Wars is headed. And you cannot argue that point, especially if you look and see what they did with Ahsoka. They just made a series about, what was her name? Morgan Elsbeth. I mean, they are going all in on this stuff. There's Filoni, there's Pablo and his wife, Filoni's wife. She's all about the witches. You see her post here. I'm getting the Gail Song catalog for what feels like most of my adult life. Look, you spend a bumpy few years in a coven in your early 20s. You need a not work pendant and a whatever. Look, she's been in a coven, ladies and gentlemen. She's talking about this tome that she uses. She's talking about she uses this tome. Oh my gosh. She uses this tome to record her periods. What? And it just so happens we're going to be getting some information about menstrual cycles in the next episode of The Acolyte. Can you believe this? Yeah, that's happening. She uses this tome. Oh my gosh. She uses this tome to record her periods. What? And it just so happens we're going to be getting some information about menstrual cycles in the next episode of The Acolyte. Can you believe this? Yeah, that's happening. And here she is with a coffee mug. Now, does having a coffee mug make her a witch? No. No more than me owning this coffee mug right here make me a fan of Grogu. I don't even like Grogu. And as I mentioned before, I mean, we got the news. The news broke out about the whole witchcraft direction long before the Ahsoka show even premiered. Ahsoka reported going in a new direction, exploring witchcraft in Star Wars, which they do. So back to the article over at StarWars.com. Learn more about the witch coven at the center of the latest episode of the new Disney Plus series. We just have to realize that, for a great many of us, this isn't Star Wars at all. Yeah, we have a Star Wars channel here, but this is a 1977 to 2012 Star Wars channel. Disney Star Wars is terrible. Absolutely terrible. My gosh. Not all witches are sisters of Dathomir, writes Kristen Baver, whatever her name is. When the Acolyte creator Leslie Headland first started writing her Star Wars series, the first 3 episodes are now streaming on Disney+. She was inspired by Mother Talzin and her coven from Star Wars The Clone Wars. But it was Dave Filoni, who worked alongside Star Wars creator George Lucas on the animated show, who helped guide Headland in the creation of her own in-world coven led by Mother Anastasia. Kristen Baver literally just wrote, but it was Dave Filoni who helped guide Headland in the creation of her own in-world coven. But notice what she put in between that. She creates this nice little compound sentence, but says right here, but it was Dave Filoni who worked alongside Star Wars creator George Lucas on the animated show. So that means everything's all right. He worked with George, so this is good Star Wars. Come on, man. What a weak, pathetic attempt to make this okay. This is horrible. Dave Filoni quickly became a kind of mentor of mine in terms of navigating what this part of the timeline would be like for both the Jedi and then the other Force users. It was kind of this aha moment for me when he told me, not all witches are Night Sisters. And of course, it was at that point Leslie Headland said, I can create my own coven of witches, and they could be in the form that I want them to be, and I can make this whole story about my own little mental counseling session that I need. What happened to Star Wars being fun and Star Wars being for children? And what happened to Star Wars being for the fans? Whoa, this is not that. And because this is the Star Wars that they give us, that's exactly why the audience score has now dropped all the way to 20%. You know, it had gone from like 35% down to 29, and then it got bumped back up to 31. Now, since episode 3 debuted on Tuesday, this thing has dropped all the way down to 20%. And it's going to go lower because remember, folks, in the next episode, that's where we get a lesson in personal pronouns. Episode 4, The Acolyte, forthcoming to a streaming platform near you. Star Wars, what are we doing? And to set the record straight, I don't hate these people. I don't wish ill on these people. This just is terrible Star Wars. If you want to have a show that embraces all of these things that you've turned Star Wars into, go make you a show about that. But that shouldn't be what Star Wars is, and that's why it's in the position that it's in. 20%. You took something that was incredible, fans loved, you made a whole park about it, Disney, and now you've all but destroyed it. For many people, it is a corpse of what it used to be. It's just not what it should be. You destroyed the indestructible. Shame on you for doing what you've done. It is outrageously crazy. And as I sit here and watch it, it's a train wreck, it's a plane crash, it's a shark attack. I just can't take my eyes off of it. It is laughably bad. Laughably. And generally speaking, the only people that are really liking this are Disney shills who consume and like anything. If you really want to know, and oh, this is really going to make them mad, guys. If you look at somebody who's giving positive comments about this show, go look at all of their comments. Look for what they have criticized. That will be interesting. What have these people actually criticized? You are a critic, aren't you? We'll be live tonight at 7 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. Hope to see you there. We are your Echo Base Network. May the George Lucas Force be with you. See you in the next one.